Good morning, New Zealand. It is safe to be here. This is a family-focused show. We're not going to use the C word, the S word, the F word, or any other offensive word because we just want to talk about the facts and do it in a polite and robust way. Welcome to Daybreak. It is Wednesday, May the 14th, middle of the week, and you're probably wondering what I'm going on about. Well, of course, it is the big story of the week about the article. I will come back to it. Andrea Vance's article and stuff, the Sunday Star Times, used the C word, targeted at female MPs, and there has been some fallout. But look, let me come back to that. But I think the news that you're probably going to hear about all this morning is about drug trends. And there's been a drug survey, so people who like their drugs have done this survey, and they've told the researchers where they get their drugs from, and lo and behold, they get it through communication channels like social media. Wow, who would have thought of that? And they also say that gangs are involved. Apparently, according to what you'll hear in the news media, New Zealanders are buying and selling drugs online. Well, you can't get them at the local dairy in general, according to the latest findings of the New Zealand Drug Trends Survey. Now, you and I could have done this survey, so it's literally just a public survey. Oh, do you like drugs? Okay, take the survey. Researchers also have a clearer picture of the role gangs play in the drug market across the country, and apparently the gangs are particularly interested in selling methamphetamine and a little bit of cannabis. There's a whole lot of other drug types which the gangs aren't involved in. Look, the survey won't tell you anything at all. It won't tell you about the problem of addiction. It won't tell you about the family harm that's being done. And look, people are we know the gangs are already involved. It is a reason that the government should continue to target the gangs. That is a good thing. That is part of the black market. But you can access drugs elsewhere. We should continue to make it illegal. We should continue to be coercing people into treatment. And we actually have got a video. So a couple of weeks ago, the Drug Testing Agency held their 20th anniversary. Fantastic organisation. Test to make sure that workplaces are safe and free of drugs. And we interviewed Bob Pennell, who's a special agent supervisor, worked in the Office of Attorney General, California Department of Justice, and the Bureau of Narcotic Enforcement in the DOJ in the US. So he is an expert, and we talked to him about the methamphetamine issue. He says that it's one of the worst drugs around. He explains the folly of drug testing, drug testing, the one that all the politicians think is the solution to this issue, or the left-wing politicians. Also talks about the link between meth and other drugs and why the drug cartels find New Zealand so attractive. So watch out for that, Family Matters. That episode will be dropping tomorrow. I just did want to touch on that because I know that there's a lot of media focus on the drugs issue this morning. If you want to get a viewpoint on something from completely left field, then you either go to the spin-off or you go to Newsroom. And Newsroom, once again, have treated themselves with this article, the social media ban. Apparently, social media is not the bogeyman of all kids' ills. And I don't think anybody is saying that it is the bogeyman of all kids' ills, but it is a significant contributor. And the research shows that since the smartphone has been introduced and since kids are spending a lot of time on screen time, and even what kids say themselves. So look, this article says when Jonathan Haidt published his best-selling book, The Anxious Generation — by the way, you can watch our interview with Jonathan Haidt that we did at the forum last year. We've just reissued that. So check our website for that. But Jonathan Haidt, when he released his book, the idea that mobile phones and social media were behind rising rates of mental health problems resonated widely. Well, it didn't resonate widely just because Jonathan Haidt wrote the book. Most people had already noticed it. Jonathan Haidt's book was simply reinforcing that with research. And the article says, although it is correct, so this is written by 3 academics, by the way. Yeah, academics, experts. And we defined what an expert was on Monday, didn't we? An X is a has-been and a spurt is a drip under pressure. So you don't want to be called an expert. But anyway, these three academics write, although it is correct that there are rising rates of mental health problems, researchers have recognised a range of social trends that might account for this, including broad shifts in family structure. Wow. I'm looking forward to that research coming out from the academics. What are they going to say? Weakening of marriage is an issue. Formation of family is a strong indicator of strong family and protection of children. Increased academic pressure. Well, I'm not sure there is. Housing and economic insecurity. I think that's always been there. Sure, housing, but economic insecurity. Had that when I was going through university. Inequity and discrimination. Good buzzwords. Political polarisation. Yes, apparently we've never had political polarisation before. And climate change. Yes, the paranoia of climate change. They say social media is like to be one of many factors that may have an impact on the lives of young people, but is certainly not the sole contributor. Well, nobody's saying that, but the fact of the matter is kids say it's a problem, parents say it's a problem, educators say it's a problem, and medical people are saying it's a problem. The only people that seem to be saying that it's not a problem, have you noticed, in this whole debate, are academics. And that should immediately put up a red flag. However, the article does say things do need to change, and there is research that draws attention to the negative effects of internet overuse, cyberbullying, grooming and abuse, and unhelpful social comparison as part of social media. But they say the findings for mental health are much less conclusive and don't establish cause and effect. Well, there is a huge amounts of research. You won't get the direct correlation or the causation, that's true. But the fact of the matter is, when you have so many groups within our society saying there is a problem, look, the solution is what we're having the debate about. But I think this newsroom article is trying to say, actually, the problem that we've all identified actually isn't the bogeyman that we're making it out to be and be nice. So I think take it with a grain of salt. Now, just back to my article on the article from the Sunday Star Times on Saturday. Look, this whole thing has really thrown the media into disrepute. Here's the problem. We constantly hear about the misogyny targeted towards female MPs. Story after story in Stuff, New Zealand Herald, One News. And then you have a female reporter from the Sunday Star Times, which is Stuff, so annoyed at the government's action around pay equity and whatever your view is on that. But this reporter is so annoyed and actually calls in her article the female MPs that are supporting this the C word. Now, I'm just finding my tweet so that I can just tell you what I've sent to the Media Council. So, this, and as you can see here, Stuff have tried to respond and defend the use of the C word in this article. And what's interesting in all this media coverage, including by the Herald, which is where this screen grab is from, is that nobody is calling out the rank hypocrisy of the media who go on about misogynistic abuse towards female MPs. And let's be honest, any abuse to any MP, person in leadership, we should be frowning upon, quite rightly so. But they've always labelled it as misogynistic abuse. And yet here is a female journalist using one of the most derogatory female terms against a female MP or group of female MPs. And, it's the hypocrisy. None of the media are seeing this hypocrisy. They're trying to defend, actually, it might be okay to use that word. And so I've actually elevated our complaint to the New Zealand Media Council, got the response from the editor of the Sunday Star Times. And look, some of the excuses that the editor of the Sunday Star Times used were weak. I mean, the editor failed to address the hypocrisy, because I looked up articles that were in Stuff and Sunday Star Times and the Post, which is all part of the same grouping of companies. They've done female MPs open up about abuse in Parliament. Research finds rape, death threats common for female MPs. Relentless abuse against women MPs on the rise. Kanoa Lloyd was scared of the racist, misogynistic abuse and cyberbullying she got when she was on TV. Did Tory Whanau cop worst abuse the most? And so they've done all these reports about the abuse, and then their own reporters do the abuse. And they can't even call themselves out for it. It's hugely ironic. Also just made the point that Stuff have tried to justify themselves by saying, well, we've used the C word before, and our reporters are really good ones. Yes, that's what they actually told the New Zealand Herald. Contrary to Tracy's response, Tracy Watkins, is the editor of the Sunday Star Times, tried to argue that it's part of a reasoned and rational argument. My response was, when you have to use the C word, you therefore lose your reasoned and rational argument. You cannot claim you're using a reasoned and rational argument. They then say that Andrea Vance, the journalist, had been the victim of uglier social media smears and threats. Look, if you're a victim of something, that doesn't give you license to return it. If anything, you should be playing the higher moral ground and saying it's unacceptable in both directions. The other argument was, actually, if we use the word more, then it becomes more colloquial and it will have less power. Yes, if we use these offensive words, and of course my response was, well, should we use the F-A-G-G-O-T word more? Should we use the N word more to more colloquialize it and take away its power? It's just a silly, silly argument. I just said, look, it's time that the media raise the standard and raise the quality of the debate, but I don't think they will. So this was the article. This was the offending article. Of course, the Labour Party got involved and started, because, if you can use the word Nazi in any argument, then it's kind of like you've really done it. You've really destroyed the other person's argument by calling them a Nazi. And so a division of the Labour Party posted this and then were told to delete it. Of course, here's an example of stuff when somebody dared to compare Jacinda Ardern to Adolf Hitler during COVID. And look at the word there. It was abhorrent. Abhorrent. Yes, but to call a female MP the C word, apparently, no, that's just making it more colloquial to take away its power, according to the editor of the Sunday Star Times. All right, so I'll update you on what the Media Council says about that. Judith Collins is upsetting the left because she wants to get rid of DEI. I heard a Green MP say it was imported Trump. Yes, imported culture wars. Great argument from the Greens. So the proposed changes would no longer require chief executives to promote DEI or take it into account when hiring, replacing, and they want to focus on merit-based appointments. Who would have thought merit-based appointments in the public